It's one of the biggest questions people wrestle with. It feels like a contradiction right at the heart of the Bible. On one side, you have the Apostle Paul. He shouts from the rooftops that we are saved by grace through faith. It's a free gift. You can't earn it. Your good deeds don't get you into heaven. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8-9 is the classic verse for this. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. It's crystal clear. Salvation is a gift. Works are out. And then there's James. James comes along and seems to throw a wrench in the whole thing. In the second chapter of his letter, he says something that sounds like the exact opposite. He asks, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him?" The implied answer is a resounding no. He finishes his thought with a knockout punch. For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. So what gives? Is the Bible contradicting itself? Do we have to pick a side, Team Paul or Team James? This isn't just a theological puzzle for scholars, it affects everything. It changes how we live, how we think about God, and how we see ourselves. If works don't matter, we might be tempted to live sloppy, careless lives. If works do matter for salvation, we can fall into the trap of trying to earn God's love, living in constant fear that we haven't done enough. The truth is, Paul and James are not fighting. They are standing back to back, fighting different enemies. They are looking at the same diamond of truth from two different angles. To understand this, we have to get into their heads a little bit. We need to see who they were talking to and what problems they were trying to solve. Let's start with Paul. Paul was dealing with a huge problem in the early church. It was the problem of legalism. Many of the first Christians were Jewish. They had grown up with the law of Moses. They had a system of rules, sacrifices, and rituals. It was deeply ingrained in them that you had to do certain things to be right with God. When they heard about Jesus, some of them thought, great, this is a new thing we can add to our system. We believe in Jesus, and we follow the law. They were telling non-Jewish converts they had to be circumcised and follow all the Jewish dietary laws to be truly saved. Paul saw this as a massive threat to the gospel. He said, no, you're missing the whole point. The point of Jesus' death and resurrection was that he did the work for us. He lived the perfect life we couldn't live and died the death we deserved. Our part is simply to accept that gift, to trust in him, to have faith. If we add a single work to that, we are saying Jesus' work wasn't enough. We are saying we have to contribute something to our own salvation. And as soon as we do that, it's no longer a gift. It becomes a wage we earn. And Paul says our works are never good enough to earn it. So Paul hammers this point home again and again. It's by faith alone. He's fighting the person who says, I believe in Jesus, but I also have to do these things to be saved. Now let's turn to James. James is writing to a different audience with a different problem. He's not dealing with legalists. He's dealing with people who are taking the idea of grace and twisting it. They're practicing a cheap, lazy faith. They are the kind of people who say, oh, I believe in Jesus. I said the prayer. I'm good. And then they go on living exactly as they did before. Their faith is just a word they say. Well, it's a mental agreement. It hasn't changed their hearts or their hands. It has no effect on their lives. So James is fighting the person who says, I have faith, so it doesn't matter how I live. Paul is fighting against adding works to faith for salvation. James is fighting against a faith that has no works following it. They are coming at the problem from opposite directions. Let's walk through James chapter 2 and really listen to what he's saying. He doesn't start with a big theological argument. He starts with a very practical, everyday example. He says, suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? This is a brilliant illustration. Imagine seeing someone shivering and starving on the street. You walk up to them, put a hand on their shoulder and say, I really hope you get warm. I'm thinking good thoughts for you and praying you find a meal. And then you walk away. Is that compassion? Of course not. It's cruel. It's empty. Your words are meaningless because they aren't backed up by any action. You didn't give them a coat. You didn't buy them a sandwich. You had the ability to help, but you did nothing. And James says this is exactly what faith without works looks like. It's just empty words. It's a hollow declaration. It claims to be something real, but it produces nothing. It's a dead thing. This is why he says, in the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. He's not saying works are what make faith come alive. He's saying that if faith is truly alive, it will naturally produce works, just like a living apple tree naturally produces apples. If you see a tree in an orchard with no leaves, no blossoms, and no fruit, you conclude it's dead. The lack of fruit doesn't kill the tree. It just reveals that the tree was already dead. In the same way, a life with no good works, no love for others, no change, reveals that the faith a person claims to have is not real, living faith. It's a dead imitation. Then James imagines someone arguing with him. You have faith, I have work. This is someone trying to separate the two, as if they are two different options for the Christian life. As if some people are gifted in believing, and others are gifted in doing. James's response is a challenge. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. Think about that. How can you show someone your faith without doing anything? You can't. Faith is invisible. It's an internal trust in God. The only way anyone can see that your internal trust is real is by your external actions. If you say you trust a chair to hold you, you prove it by sitting in it. The sitting doesn't create the trust, but it demonstrates it. If you refuse to sit, your words, I trust this chair, are empty. James is saying the same thing about our faith in God. Our actions, our works are the evidence of our unseen faith. Then James delivers what is perhaps his most powerful argument. He says, you believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. This is a stunning point. If salvation is just about having the correct intellectual information in your head, then demons would be saved. They have better theology than most of us. They know exactly who God is. They know who Jesus is. They recognized him immediately in the gospel. They believe the facts. But does this faith save them? No. It terrifies them. This tells us something crucial about what saving faith is. Saving faith is not just agreeing with a list of facts about God. It's not just mental assent. It's a deep trust and reliance on God that changes you from the inside out. It's handing over the keys of your life to Jesus. The demons believe, but they have not surrendered. Their belief doesn't lead to love, obedience, or a changed life. It leads to fear and rebellion. James uses this to show that a faith that is just a set of beliefs is not saving faith. It's demon faith, and it's dead. Now we get to the part that seems to directly contradict Paul. James brings up Abraham. He says, was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? He even quotes the Old Testament and says, you see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. This sounds like a head-on collision with Paul, who uses Abraham in Romans 4 as his primary example of being saved by faith alone. Paul points to Genesis 15, where Abraham believed God's promise of a son, and the Bible says that God credited it to him as righteousness. Paul emphasizes that this happened long before Abraham was circumcised, or had done any great work to prove himself. He was declared righteous simply because he believed. So, which is it? Was Abraham saved by faith in Genesis 15, as Paul says, or by works in Genesis 22, when he offered Isaac, as James says? The key is to see that they are talking about two different moments that prove the same thing. Paul is talking about the root of Abraham's righteousness. When was he declared right in God's sight? It was in Genesis 15, when he simply believed God's impossible promise. That was the moment of his justification. James is talking about the fruit of Abraham's righteousness. How was that faith from Genesis 15 proven to be real? It was proven decades later on Mount Moriah in Genesis 22. When God asked Abraham to do the hardest thing imaginable, to sacrifice the very son God had promised him, Abraham's faith went into action. He trusted God so completely that he was willing to obey, believing God could raise Isaac from the dead if he had to. This incredible act of obedience didn't make him righteous. It showed that the righteousness he received by faith so long ago was genuine. It was the ultimate demonstration of his faith. James says his faith was made complete by his works. This doesn't mean his faith was lacking and works fixed it. The word for complete can also mean brought to its intended goal or shown to be mature. A medical student becomes a doctor when she gets her degree, but her knowledge is completed or brought to its goal when she actually performs surgery and saves a life. The action proves the reality of her training. Abraham's action on Mount Moriah proved the reality of the faith he had lived by for years. It showed what his faith was made of. So Paul looks at Abraham and says, look, he was saved by faith before he did any works. And James looks at the same man and says, look, his faith was real, and you can see it because it produced this incredible work. They aren't contradicting each other. They are both right. Then James gives another example, Rahab, the prostitute. She's a surprising choice. She was not a Jew. She was a pagan living in the enemy city of Jericho. But she heard the stories about the God of Israel, and she believed. She said to the Israelite spies, I know that the Lord has given you this land, for the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. That sounds like a statement of faith. But James points out that her faith didn't stay in her head. It moved to her hands and feet. She acted on it. She hid the spies and helped them escape, risking her own life to align herself with God's people. James says she was considered righteous for what she did. Her work of hiding the spies was the evidence of her faith. If she had said, "I believe in your God," but then turned the spies over to the authorities, her words would have been meaningless. Her actions proved her faith was real. So we can bring it all together with a simple analogy. Think of a tree. Paul is the botanist explaining how a tree gets its life. He says it's all about the root system. The roots are hidden underground, drawing life from the soil. That's faith. It's our hidden personal trust in Christ. That is what connects us to God and gives us life. You can't see the roots, but they are the source of everything. James is the orchard keeper. He walks through the orchard and says, "How can I tell which of these trees are alive?" He looks for the fruit. He says, "This tree has apples on it. I know it's a living apple tree. That one over there has no leaves and no fruit. It must be dead." The apples don't make the tree an apple tree. The tree's nature, its DNA, makes it an apple tree. But the apples are the undeniable proof of that nature. Faith is the root, works are the fruit. Salvation is by faith alone. But the faith that saves is never alone. It always, always, always produces the fruit of good works. A changed life is the evidence of a saved life. So, what does this mean for us? It frees us from two dangerous extremes. First, it frees us from the burden of legalism. We can stop trying to earn our way to God. We can rest. The pressure is off. Jesus paid the full price. Our good works don't make God love us more. Our bad days don't make God love us less. Our salvation is secure because it depends on his work, not ours. This is the good news that Paul championed. We are saved by grace, period. But second, it frees us from the deception of cheap grace. We are challenged to look at our lives honestly. James's letter acts like a mirror. He asks us, you say you believe. What does your life say? Does your faith show up in how you treat the poor, in how you talk to your family, in how you handle your money, in your patience, your kindness, your generosity? This isn't meant to make us paranoid or constantly doubt our salvation. It's a loving wake-up call. It's a diagnostic tool. If a doctor tells you that chest pain is a symptom of a heart problem, he's not trying to scare you. He's trying to save you. He's saying, pay attention to the evidence. If you have this symptom, let's check your heart. James is saying, if your life has no evidence of change, no fruit of good works, you need to check your heart. You might not have the real living faith you think you have. Good works matter. They matter a great deal. But they matter not as the cause of our salvation, but as the consequence and confirmation of our salvation. They are the proof in the pudding. They are the music that flows from a heart that has been tuned by grace. They are the automatic, natural, and beautiful result of being truly connected. When we truly grasp the grace of God, we don't respond by saying, great, now I can do whatever I want. A person who has been rescued from a crushing debt doesn't immediately go and rack up more debt. They are filled with gratitude for the one who paid it off. They want to live in a way that honors that person. In the same way, when we understand what Jesus did for us on the cross, the natural response of a grateful heart is to want to live for him. We don't obey him to get saved. We obey him because we are saved. The works James talks about aren't just big, heroic things like offering your son or hiding spies. They're the everyday stuff. They are choosing kindness when you want to be angry. They are being generous when you could be selfish. They are telling the truth when a lie would be easier. They are serving others when no one is watching. They are the fruit that grows when the root of faith is healthy. So, do good works matter? Yes. They are everything. Not because they save us, but because they show that we have been saved. They are the tangible proof of an invisible reality. They are the heartbeat of a living faith. Paul would agree. After his great declaration in Ephesians that we are saved by grace through faith and not by works, he immediately adds the very next verse, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Paul and James are in perfect harmony. We are not saved by good works, we are saved for good works. Faith alone is the boat that carries us to the shore of salvation. But once we arrive, we are meant to get out of the boat and walk, live, and act in this new country where we have been brought. The walking doesn't get us to the shore, but it's what we do once we're there. It's the proof that we've actually landed.